Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be looking at 5 social media strategies for place marketing. My name is Elisa Sklar. I'm the VP of Marketing at GIS Planning. I appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy days to join us for this webinar. Before I get started, I just want to say a couple things about how we run our webinars here at GIS Planning. Now, I wanted to start off by saying that when I originally scheduled this webinar, I, of course, like most of us, had no idea what the context was that we are currently dealing with. The circumstances are very different than when I originally created this webinar content and I've presented in the past. So because of that, I have adapted it a little bit to talk about the importance of social media and communication in the context of the unfolding coronavirus pandemic that we're all dealing with. I assume most of you are working remotely from home offices, and I understand that things don't feel at all normal for you because, in fact, they aren't, and that we're all working very hard to support our communities, our regions, our local businesses, our workforce, and to be a nexus for information. And I think that in that context, actually, social media outreach is more important than ever. I don't know about you, but I've been spending a lot more time gleaning different news and updates from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from Twitter, just to stay abreast of these rapidly changing and unfolding situation. And so we're going to look at different ways that we can use that to make the most of effectively communicating to the regional stakeholders in your area in your capacity as economic developers. Okay, so let's get started. So some of the things we're going to be talking about here then are looking at communicating in an unfolding crisis, what that actually means, especially since things are so much in flux and constantly changing. March legitimately feels like the longest month I've ever been through. I don't even know what day it is, but we call it Blur's Day. That's what it's actually feeling like. So communication in an unfolding crisis. We'll talk about business to government and government to business, not just B2B, but what we call B2G and G2B. We'll talk about the importance now more than ever of connecting businesses to businesses. I'll be reviewing 5 specific social media strategies, and I hope to be giving you lots of practical takeaways that you can begin using right away. Now, just a couple things that I want to say, given the context we find ourselves in, is that this effective communication from you guys to provide this leadership online is more important now than ever. Most people are either working from home, from remote offices, your businesses, many of them may be closed. They're looking for leadership and for guidance, so they're going to be online. So some of the things that we've seen since this began to really kind of hit communities, especially in North America, is that economic development organizations, your website has become a really critical place to provide resources for local businesses. You may have different programs, outreach, things that are being offered at different levels of government. One of the things that you can do as an economic development organization or chamber of commerce is to aggregate all of those links and put them in one place on your website so people can find them. Maybe you're surveying businesses, maybe you're putting links for area workers who need to apply for unemployment insurance or whatever programs are being offered. Information and directives from area government. This changes from time to time. Some of you have shelter at home. Some of you may be in lockdown. Some of you may be essential services only. Some areas we're asking people not to move more than 1 kilometer, 1 mile from their homes. So the other thing that we at GIS Planning have done in the past couple of weeks is we have unfolded a number of free resources that we've added to our online data tools for all of our clients. It is now possible to, for free, add local layers to show businesses that are open and closed, testing centers, essential services, etc. You can also map on your tool what we're using from Jobs EQ from Shmura, their vulnerability economist index. I'll show you what that looks like. So that can be mapped onto your GIS tool. And as of today, we are now offering granular level data that I'll show you that can be mapped on all of your tools, showing the number of cases, confirmed cases, number of deaths. All of that can be hosted on your tool as well, and that data is updated daily. There is information for workforce or talent. Maybe you're doing, as I said, a business survey. I will be sharing this slide deck with you, so all of these hyperlinks are going to work, so you can click through to them. Maybe you're off, trying to support a program where people can buy gift cards for local businesses to give them a cash influx that they need right now, takeout or delivery from restaurants that no longer offer on-site dining. So in light of those things, let's talk about some of the ways that we can make the most of a government to business social media strategy. First of all, you have, as economic developers, an authoritative, credible voice, so people are looking to you for direction. This also gives you an opportunity to put faces on places. You're not just an organization, but you are people who are working to support other people in your area. This gives you a platforms, plural, to inform, to educate, to engage those in your community. On your social media outreach, you can have descriptive text, key data, maps, images, video, and other kinds of interactive tools. And it really reduces the burden of helping people access information in a timely and efficient way, because social media is so instantaneous and people know that they can come to your website but also to your profiles to be made aware as soon as things change, which is really critical in a rapidly unfolding crisis such as the one we find ourselves in. And in normal times, of course, being the business to site selector, business to business matchmaker. And in fact, we're hearing from site selectors that site selection is actually still going on. They are still looking for investment, for locations for investors. They're just doing it online. So it's more critical than ever to have available sites and buildings and the data around those on your website, because they're just doing it virtually. If they can't come for fam visits, this is how they're doing it. So some of the musts that we're going to look at when it comes to social media, one, of course, is to know your social media tools, and we'll take a look at that. To know your specific objectives. Are you trying to inform? Are you trying to do outreach? Are you trying to get people to participate in a survey? Are you trying to get engage site selectors? To build engagement over time, to establish lists of content resources on your social media tools, and to use hashtags strategically. So let's start off with knowing your tools, which obviously there's a lot of social media tools out there. We know that sometimes can feel a little overwhelming or dizzying, and there's lots of different ways that they can be used. Some examples that we've got here from past and present. Being able to engage people by sharing data, for example. So this is a mapping LA neighborhoods with the most small businesses. And we use zoomprospector.com here as the US National Site Selection Portal. It has over 1,000 data points for every community in the US. As an example from British Columbia, the town of Abbotsford. So using this to generate information about area events. So using this on Twitter in this case. This is an example from LinkedIn, from Business Oregon, using LinkedIn to post properties of the month with links back to the online site selector. And this is actually really critical, because often on social media we can put a beautiful image or a video, but primarily the goal most of the time is going to get people to come back to your website. So putting those links in there is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, you're giving interesting information, but you're not necessarily generating leads or generating specific engagement out of that. This was a post that I noticed yesterday. This is from Waycross and Ware County Development Authority, and they're using the new map layers here to map the COVID-19 data on their mapping tools. So they put a post out on GIS planning. They know that their businesses are on Facebook in this case. So they put it on Facebook. Again, you can see that there's a link back there, including images. They called out people so that we knew to be able to respond to them and to help them amplify the demand. So we can reshare, repost, comment, like all of those kinds of things. So very critical to be able to do this sort of outreach. Using YouTube is fantastic. A lot of people are concerned about video production. There are actually some fantastic video production organizations out there. I know a number of our clients have worked with Neon Cloud Productions. They specialize in economic development video, fantastic animations, video, things that they can do for you. And they're absolute consummate professionals. If you are going to be posting video, I always urge people to put a text description underneath with your keywords and a link back to your website. Google cannot index the content of your YouTube videos. It needs the text underneath, and it needs the link in order for people to know where to go with it. So something important to remember. Another example here from LinkedIn, we know that LinkedIn, as I always say, is very important. You know, businesses are there, people aren't posting pictures of their lunch, so that's really critical. In this case, Charlotte is Regional Business Alliance is got their COVID-19 resource portal, and they're promoting that on LinkedIn as well. Now, the second thing that we really have to have as a takeaway here, because social media can be such a time suck, is to recognize how do we use that time wisely. And that's especially an issue if you don't have a dedicated comms team. Perhaps you are wearing many different hats. In addition to running your chamber or your economic development organization, you also are in charge of this content. So this is what I suggest. Allocate 15 minutes at the start of the day, 15 minutes after lunch, and 15 minutes at the end of the day to post things. You can have a calendar where you post regular posts across the month at the beginning of the month, and you're checking in to look for engagement, questions, retweets, mentions, those kinds of things so that you can respond to them. So that there's a little bit of time that would have to go initially to building those profiles and accounts if you don't have them yet. But after that, you just want to set a timer and just limit how much time you're spending on them. Let's take a look at the different tools and some of the ways they can be useful for you. So we know LinkedIn organizational pages are fantastic for information, getting information out quickly, but also engagement. It's a place where you can get your local businesses and your regional stakeholders, your elected officials, your realtors, whoever they are, to engage with you, to follow you. And then the second thing that I really strongly encourage people to do is to create a LinkedIn group in which you are the moderator. And this is so important right now during this crisis where businesses are looking for direction. You can help them crowdsource with each other. You can help them develop new supply chain links or procurement strategies. Maybe they're not able to source materials from other states or internationally anymore. Maybe there are local areas where they can do that. You can create a group, invite all your area businesses, and it is a place where people can generate this fantastic engagement. It's not visible to non-members. Your organizational page is anyone who comes there. A moderated group is a place for more action and for getting your stakeholders together. I strongly encourage you to consider that. Twitter is a great place for actionable intelligence, for engagement. I don't hear so much about people getting leads for economic development there, but it's a great place to monitor what is happening out there. You can create lists of, areas around you, of site selectors, of businesses you're tracking, and a great place to engage with that. Now, Facebook is a great place for your small and medium-sized business owners. You can encourage them to follow you there. Another great place to crowdsource and share resources and help them create synergies within your region that may not actually have been there. We know that a lot of the smaller businesses, for example, may be on Facebook, but not necessarily on LinkedIn. YouTube, fantastic for SEO. It is, of course, a Google product, so anything on YouTube is going to take advantage of Google rankings, and a great place to get information out there. So videos now can be shot in quite a compelling way, even with just a newer iPhone or Android. Get some clean audio. Make sure you turn it sideways so you're shooting horizontally. The vertical mode is great for Instagram, not so good for YouTube, but still usable. Instagram, I am seeing communities using Instagram or Snapchat or Pinterest. They're great for SEO, great to create a presence. Instagram, increasingly important to reach millennials and workforce. So if you're doing workforce attraction, that's a great place to be. Fill in local color for your organization, and just another place to leverage content. However, if you don't have a ton of time, if you have to choose just one, I encourage you to fish where the fish are, to spend your time on LinkedIn, because that actually is where you are going to be able to reach most people. That people, as I said, are not posting pictures of their lunch there. That's what they're looking for. Now, if you're concerned about content moderation, and I know that's certainly could be an issue, is to think about locking down the settings for your area. So take advantage of those settings, and they're usually easy to find. This is an example from Facebook. You can go in, click on settings, and then look at page moderation or other things that you can actually do to be able to shut some of those things down if you have loose cannons in your area. Really, for the most part, people are generally quite respectful unless you're doing something very controversial. But for the most part, it does give you the ability to delete and to moderate and to think about comments or posts that you want to avoid from a particular area. Okay, so then we think about building engagement, and this is where you need to understand for yourself why you are online, what your primary objectives are. Are you looking to build SEO so that your search rankings show those feeds? Whenever someone's going to search for you, your Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter profiles are likely going to come up at the top of those search rankings, hopefully alongside your website. But primarily your reason is going to be to drive people back to your website. So you really want to think about putting those links in there on all of your posts and being aware of how you can actually do that. Otherwise, it's kind of like vampire creative. You're doing some creative stuff online, but it isn't accomplishing anything for you. So you don't need, as I said, every social media tool. They are going to show up, as you can see on the side over here in any one search rankings. But if time is of the essence and you don't have a lot of resources for time, concentrate on one or two strategically important networks and populate them with quality content. Now, if you're using a social deck, if you're using, let's say, HubSpot or Hootsuite, you can, at the click of a mouse, replicate a social post from one onto another place. So it makes it much easier to do these things very quickly. So I would think through what your most important one is, and then I would consider adding, if you want to use one of those decks to be able to make this move as smoothly as possible. And then once you know your objectives, is structure social media campaigns around them. So for example, perhaps communicating your COVID-19 regional resources is one specific objective right now. So I would spend a few minutes and come up with the kinds of posts you want to share, links back to your website, links back to business surveys, and then think about what that would look like on LinkedIn. What would that look like on Facebook? What would that look like on Twitter? Strongly encourage you to include images. That can be a screenshot from your website, if that's all it is. That's fine too. Images are really critical on social media. They get people's attention and they highly improve clickability and click through on those things. So you want to put them in there. Perhaps you'll have a separate campaign around, business as usual in the area as much as possible. We're still open for business. We're still open for investment. So that's maybe a campaign for site selectors and for potential investors. What would that look like? Do you have any properties that you want to promote? What's your value proposition for the area? How would you communicate that? What are the visuals? And then structure those campaigns. At the beginning of a month, create an editorial calendar, much easier again if you have HubSpot or Hootsuite, but still possible if you're doing it directly through the social media channels themselves. And schedule 2, 3, 4 posts a week so that you're able to populate your accounts and make sure those go out without you having to do that every single day. And then use your email newsletter to amplify your social channels. So we actually did a webinar not too long ago, I think it was last month, feels like a long time ago, but everything does these days, where we looked at maximizing an email newsletter. We think of these maybe as a little old-fashioned already. They're actually very, very useful if they're used properly. And use your e-newsletter to draw people back to your social channels. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, engage with us in our Facebook group, whatever that actually is. So that and then conversely, on your social media channels, you can promote your e-newsletter. Register to receive our newsletter here, sign up for our email newsletter, stay in the loop, so that you're doing this kind of loop across back and forth. Now, your data tools are a source of inexhaustible content for your social media channels. I'm going to show you some examples of those, but whatever it is that you're trying to model, whether it's disaster response, top 10, let's say, businesses that are serving things, top 10 properties, top 10 sites, You can share information about jobs, spending, population data that you have within your area, other kinds of data, maybe talent pool, for example, top degrees conferred within a 100-mile radius, all of that information available. Profiling business clusters, for example, medical or healthcare right now, or engineering clusters, for example. Other kinds of news, heat maps, thematic heat maps that are showing how different data variables are dispersed across your geography. So maybe how many 20 to 29-year-olds live in different zip code or block group or wards in Canada, postal code, so that you can show people where their workforce can be found. Other kinds of visuals like charts or maps or graphs. You could do profiles on specific entrepreneurs or businesses. Business of the day, charts, as I said, a property of the week is also very, very powerful. So some of the things that I strongly encourage people to do is to ensure accuracy, make sure that your data tool is a reliable one, that you do your research carefully, and consider using some themes. ZoomProspector.com, if you're not a GIS planning client, as I said, has over 1,000 data points on every community in the nation. I encourage you to click on those links and take a look at what those look like. So here's some examples of ways you could pull information, and given the context, I chose to look at some of the free data layers we've added in the last couple of weeks for our clients. So in this case, you're looking at the COVID-19 business status. These are local data layers. We just ask our clients to share, either connect us to their internal GIS or share a spreadsheet with us. We can get those open or close, what businesses are. You can click on any one of those push pins and actually see the name of the business, what their phone number is, link to their website, and what their hours of operation are. Another example here, this is from the state of Kentucky, is the Chmura Jobs EQ Vulnerability Economist Index. There is a way to look at that, look at the index value. We provide that information along with it. You can click on any one of those color blocks and see what that actually means for a particular area in terms of how they are maybe made vulnerable to what is actually happening. Again, people worry sometimes about sharing what they see as negative data, but any investor who's going to be putting money into an area is going to do this research, and what you see as negative data, for example, lower education levels, for example, or higher vulnerability, may seem like opportunity to them. So it's important not to second guess yourself and to share those different things. Here's an example from the SC Power Team site of mapping business clusters. So each one of those dots represents a business. In this case, we've drilled down to look at healthcare and social services. You could toggle any one of those off as you drill down. If we want to look just at physicians' clinics, for example, that is possible to do. And you can show then in an area exactly how those businesses are mapped, where they're located. You can zoom in further. You can click on the different links, and it tells you a little bit about that particular business, what industry they fall into, and employees and sales information as well. This is the latest round of free data that we've added to all client tools, and this uses the daily updated New York Times index of information about COVID-19, everything from reported cases, deaths, confirmed cases, recovered. So you can drill down county by county to get that information and see actually how this is playing out across a particular region. So one of the other things that you're going to want to think about is using hashtags strategically. If you are not familiar with hashtags, that are those terms that appear after that pound sign, you can track them. I like hashtagify.me, but you can go to other places and see, for example, if we use the econdev hashtag, how does it connect with other hashtags? So we see the jobs, innovation, manufacturing, FDI, economic development, site selection, all of those things are important. So using your hashtags strategically is quite helpful. You can create your own hashtags, so that lets you track how people are using them. So in this case, from Nike, they're using Project North, Choose Your Winter. Abbotsford Economic Development uses BizFriendly Abby as their proprietary hashtag. Now, anyone else can use this, but they're probably not going to do that unless they're engaging with them. Having a hashtag gives you a search term that you can then use to track all of the different posts about your community or about this particular campaign. So quite useful. Now, the last thing I want to share with you here is the bonus number 6. You can set up a Google alert. This is something I absolutely encourage you to do for for your organization, for your own name, for the name of your director, for any, for example, important industry clusters. And what happens is Google will email you. Here, let's go back and see if we can zoom in on that. It will email you anytime that term appears. So if you're using a term with more than one word, for example, someone's name, you could put them in quotation marks. And that's really critical because otherwise it's going to search for Elisa and Sklar separately. Putting them in quotation marks means that they're searching for all of those things at the same time. So if you're looking at SC Power Team or the name of your organization, consider doing that. Put your email address in there, and then it's going to share all of the public links on the internet that meet that particular criteria. They are free. You can have as many of them as you want. If you've got teenagers, highly recommend you help them track themselves and track them too. But this way you always stay up to date whenever that term is being used. And that's very, very useful for social media. In fact, it's useful for just about anything that you might be doing online so that you can monitor your Google footprint, because that's really what that's all about. So this brings us to the questions part of our presentation today. If you have any questions, I highly encourage you to put them in the questions field in the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. A reminder that I will be sharing the video of today's webinar with you afterwards, and I'll be sharing as well the slide deck so you can click through and see any of the hyperlinks that I included in there. But I'd love to hear what your questions are. One person said that their local hospitals need basic supplies, scrubs, masks, and local companies sometimes have them in stock and are looking for ways that they can find the clinics to share them with. So that's an interesting idea. If you wanted to include a map of all the hospitals in your area and do outreach, maybe on a group or on your LinkedIn page, to let any local companies in your area that may have masks lying around or face shields or other kinds of personal protective equipment that healthcare and frontline workers can use, that would be a way that they could create those donations. It's a nice way to create that community solidarity, get businesses to help each other, to support each other. Those donations are absolutely possible as well. It is also possible to track grocery stores. I know that's become a really important nexus for us. So there are vulnerable people in every region and community, how some of them are maybe seniors and they're maybe more at risk, can't get out. So being able to provide tracking of all of the grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants offering takeout and delivery in your area that are still open, and sharing that. So it's a way to support those local companies and make sure that people in your region know that they are there and are able to reach out and get that. So that's something else you could do using a business mapping tool. Any other questions coming in? Feel free to share those over there. I'd be happy to answer your questions. How do we get information about these layers on Zoom Prospector? So if you are interested in learning more about adding them, some of them, such as the Shmura layer and the New York Times layer, are added automatically to all of our Zoom Prospector clients for free. We've also give you the option to add any local data layers. If that's something you're interested in, you can email me or email support@gisplanning.com. And we'll tell you how we can connect to your local GIS or what information we would need on a spreadsheet in order to get that up as quickly as possible on your map. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy days. I wish you all good health, stay safe, be well. Thank you for doing all the things that you do to support your local business communities in your region. We really appreciate you. We're all in this together, and we are in fact stronger together, so we appreciate that. Be well and stay in touch. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.